Irene was born in 1949. She's always lived in the Alexandria, Vale of Leven area. It was just her and her brother, Jerry. I think when my mum must have been about 6 or 7, they moved towards Balquhidder, and they kept that home up until my Uncle Jerry passed away. She was educated nearby as well at Notre Dame in Dumbarton, and she loved literature, English, etc., and chose to study that at Glasgow University. She had a part-time job in Balquhidder in what's called the Glenroy Bar, that's actually still there, and that's where she met my dad. Him and his sister actually worked in the Glenroy Bar. Their family had moved up from Dumfries to Balquhidder. His dad was a postmaster, and so they just had to go with his job really, and they met there. My mum was friends with my aunt first of all, and then met my dad through that. He was studying at St Andrews University at the time, and then while my mum was still at university, he went out to Philadelphia for 2 years to do his graduate degree there, and they stayed together. She went out to visit him there, and when she came back they got married. When she'd finished her degree, she decided she wanted to be a teacher, and the first teaching job that she had was in Sacred Heart High School in Paisley. So they moved to Paisley initially. She worked there, and then they had my brother Stephen. He's 2 years older than me. So that was 1978, and they moved back to Alexandria 2 years later, January 1980, just before I was born. And that's actually because Irene's own mother, had Alzheimer's, and she had a big role in caring for her own mum, and she was too far away at that point. So they moved back to Alexandria. My mum didn't work until Stephen was 7 and I was 5. She went back to teaching when I went into primary 1, and she went back to Vale of Leven Academy, where she worked until she retired, so over 20 years. And it's through working in Vale of Leven Academy, the local secondary school, that she would have taught people who now work here as carers. I would say we noticed signs in our early 60s that things weren't normal. She wasn't, things had changed. She was repeating herself a lot of the time, asking us the same questions over and over. And if you brought it up with her, she didn't know what you were talking about. And that, initially, I would say for about a year, that kind of went on until it became really noticeable and she stopped. She's always been a very outgoing person, as I've said to you, volunteering opportunities, meeting with her friends, even the job that she did. And she wouldn't go out as much. And going out to meet people, she would say she didn't want to go, and it just wasn't like her. It was very, very fast moving for my mum, and it really took hold very, very quickly. And my dad retired. Initially I helped out a lot. I'm also a teacher, and I worked 3 days a week, so I would help out on my days off and at the weekends. And my dad retired, and very quickly it became his role was as carer for my mum too. And as it started to become a bit too much, we got help from the local authority, where carers would come in and help get my mum dressed and such like, and that gave my dad a bit of respite in the morning. But our condition just kept getting worse and worse, and it's the toll that it takes on everyone else within their life. So as much as you never ever want to make that decision to put your parent into a care home, we had to think about the bigger picture and think about the effect that it was having on my dad. He was becoming very ill, myself and my brother. We had young families at the time, and so it was hard on everyone. And something that we always remember, I've said to you already that my mum's own mother was in care, and she used to say to us, if that ever happens to me, you put me in a care home and you forget about me. And I know that, sorry. I know that that's exactly what she would have wanted us to do. She wouldn't have wanted to be a burden to anyone. Not that she was a burden, if you know what I mean, but she would have agreed with that decision and she would have supported us wholeheartedly in it. We chose Balquhidder House because we've always lived in Alexandria. Where my mum lived is less than a mile away from here, and my brother and I both also live locally, and so we wanted to be in very close proximity to the home that we chose for our mum. And also we'd heard good reviews. We'd spoken to different people who had either had a family member that was cared for here or knew someone who had a family member that had been cared for here. And obviously, when you do take that decision, you want to make sure that you pick the right place for your parent to be looked after. And when we came here, we knew that this was the place that we wanted our mum to be. When you have a parent who's a teacher, I think sometimes that could backfire on you, and you might have comments from people, particularly a secondary school teacher, that are mean and nasty, and I have to say that my brother and I never ever experienced that. It was always positive. It was always, your mum's my favourite teacher, I love your mum, or even just, oh, I've had your mum before, and even to this day we still get it, and it's always been lovely to hear. But when you're in a place visiting your mum and she's being looked after in a care home, to hear things like that, it makes us feel, more positive about the whole thing, and that, they've picked this job, and it makes you sometimes think how they must feel as well when they are caring for someone that used to teach them. And obviously I don't think it would make them feel any different about caring for my mum than it does for any other resident, but it must be nice to be able to give something back to someone who taught you and someone that you have fond memories of, really. I think working in care must be an incredibly rewarding job, I really do. And it's only since my mum has been in Balquhidder that I've noticed just how hard people work, and the effort that they put into their job, and the skills and qualities that they must have in order to do this job. We're relying, and me and all of the other relatives of residents in Balquhidder and other care homes, we're relying on carers and nurses to do what we can't do. We expect them not only to be looking after, as in helping them get washed, helping them get ready, helping to feed them. We're also relying on them to be giving them a cuddle if they need a cuddle, to be reassuring them if they need to be reassured, to be having a chat to them about their day, to be bringing some positivity into that day. I think it's a job that requires unique people to do it. And people say to me, oh, you're a secondary school teacher, that I couldn't work with teenagers. That's just something I do day in, day out, and I don't think about it. And, I couldn't do this job, and I know I couldn't, but I'm so, so glad that there are so many people out there that do this job and that do it well, and that care for my mum in the way that they do. My brother and I speak about it often, but one thing we've always noticed is the interactions between the care staff and their mum. They're always positive, and particularly at a time, we've recently come through the pandemic, and we really, really had to rely on care staff, giving our mum those hugs, giving her an extra cuddle, reassuring her, because she didn't see us for such a long period of time. And I think we have to value staff. Not that we didn't value them before, but I just place so much more value on them now. And we're so grateful for the work that staff do and for them taking care of our mum so well.